I'm a nurse. I don't think I don't say things I can't back up, but I have to tell you what I saw and I have to tell you what I did. If you've been following this series from the beginning, you now understand stem cells at a level most people never reach. You understand dormancy, exhaustion, immune rejection, failure of injectable treatments, the GHKCU peptide, what happens when it drops 70% as we age. I built that foundation on purpose because I needed you to have educated eyes before I tell you the next part. In early September, my mom started using something called the LifeWave X39 patch. The X39 patch is a small non transdermal patch, meaning nothing enters the body through the skin. No drugs, no chemicals, no injection. It uses the body's own infrared heat to reflect specific wavelengths of light back into the skin. According to published research, that mechanism elevates a peptide called GHKCU, the same peptide we've talked about in the last post, the one that influences over 4,000 genes, the one that drops 70% as you age, the one that sits at the intersection of tissue repair, immune regulation, and stem cell activation. Now, I want to be straight with you, the way I've been straight with you this whole series. Is the X39 patch FDA approved as a medical treatment? No, it's classified as a wellness product. Are there large scale clinical trials published in mainstream medical journals? Not yet. But here's something I want you to think about. When Alexander Fleming first discovered that penicillin killed bacteria in 1928, the science was real, the effect was real. But it took over a decade of additional research before penicillin became widely accepted in the medical treatment. The lack of completed science did not make the observation less true. It just meant the world had not caught up yet. I think about that a lot when I think about the research on X39. What does exist is a double blind, randomized controlled trial, the same methodology used in pharmaceutical research that showed a statistically significant 40% increase in GHKCU levels in the blood of people wearing the X39 patch for just 7 days. 40% compared to zero change in the placebo group. This was published in the Internal Medicine Research Open Journal in 2021. Is it a perfect study? No, it needs replication with larger groups of mainstream journals, but a 40% measurable increase in a master repair peptide with a control group showing nothing, that's not nothing. That is the beginning, and beginnings matter. And then there is what I personally witnessed. My mom, 17 years of CLL, 3 hemoglobin injections in 6 months, heading toward aggressive treatment. 5 specialists who independently noticed she looked better than she ever had without knowing what she was doing. And a CBC that came back completely normal for the first time in 17 years. But my mom's not the only story I've witnessed. I know a 17-year-old girl who has had cystic fibrosis since she was an infant. 2 years ago, she developed a rare bacterial infection. On top of her CF was declining rapidly. She was losing weight. She couldn't sleep through the night without violently coughing. Her family was out of options. In June of 2024, when her life was hanging in the balance, a friend told them about the X39 patch. They were desperate and they felt at this point they had nothing to lose. The first night she used the patch was the first night in her entire life she slept through without violently coughing. Not after a week, the first night. By the end of 2024, her lung function had reached 100% for the first time in her life. I'm a nurse. I understand placebo effect. I understand correlation versus causation. I understand the difference between anecdotal evidence and clinical proofs. But I also know what I have witnessed, and I know that a first night response to a lifetime of violent coughing is not a placebo timeline. What happened next was simple. When I saw what this did for my mom, and then when I started hearing other stories like this young woman with CF, I wanted this for every person I love. I wanted to share it with my whole family. And then I wanted to share it with everyone I knew. And that is why I became a LifeWave distributor. Not because someone recruited me into the business, but because I could not stay quiet about what I had just seen. I'm not here to tell you this patch will do for you what it did for my mom or that young lady. I'm not a doctor. I can't make promises, and I would not insult your intelligence by trying. What I am telling you is that the biology we have spent 15 posts building together gives a coherent scientific explanation for something like how something like this could work. Elevating a peptide that signals 4,000 genes supporting the body's own stem cell activation system, introducing no foreign cells, therefore triggering no immune rejection. It works with the body, not around it, not instead of it. And that to me, as a nurse, as a daughter, as someone who watched what I watched, is worth talking about honestly. In the next post, we're going to go into exactly why this approach is biologically different from everything else we've discussed in this series. And I think after everything you've learned, it's going to make complete sense.